Hi there. Hey, glad you could stop by again. I've got several things I want to try to squeeze into this little discussion if I have time, so let's get to it. First of all, you've heard me talk about trines, right? Trines, things that come in threes. Well, here's another one for you. There's one that's called the trine of the evolution of a religion, or for short, the trine of religion. And there's, like all the other trines, there are 3 steps to it. The trine of the evolution of a religion consists of 1, 2, 3. Number 1, the personal religion. Number 2, the organized personal religion. And number 3, the shared organized personal religion. Now, think back throughout history, and you'll see that there are a lot of instances where religion started off just that way and went through those same 3 steps. I have a feeling that Jesus started Christianity that way. And Muhammad went through those same steps when he started Islam, or Mohammedanism. Ellen White, E.W. White, probably went through the same steps when she started what we now know as the Seventh-day Adventists. And of course, Joseph Smith. He started off the LDS Church, the Mormons, I'm sure with the same 3 steps. And let's talk about those 3 steps one by one here. Number 1, in the evolution of a religion, is the personal religion. And that's a religion that exists only in somebody's head. It's a set of ideas bouncing around in somebody's head that they came up with to explain everything that is. The meaning of life, the meaning of the universe, bouncing around in their head, and nobody knows about it but them. It's private. It's a personal thing that exists nowhere except in that person's head. But then, lo and behold, somewhere along the way, that person decides to start writing some things down and starts applying some names to things and some symbols. And at that point, it starts to become organized. Nobody knows about it still. It's still private, but now, instead of just being an ephemeral thing that's bouncing around in their head, it's now becoming a little more concrete. And in some rare cases, it advances on to stage 3, and that's when that person decides to take his notes and his diagrams and his books and his organization and share it with a few others. Maybe 1 person or 2 people. And at that point, that person's organized personal religion becomes a shared organized personal religion. And of course, if you share it with more and more and more people, until you're sharing it with thousands or millions of people, then it can become a very well-known shared, organized personal religion. Now, I bring this up because that's the way my own personal religion has evolved over the last dozen years or so. I started off with a set of ideas in my head. I began to ponder what I thought the meaning of everything might be, who or what I thought God might be, and how I envisioned Jesus. And that was a set of ideas bouncing around in my head for a number of years. That was my own personal religion. Nobody knew about it but me. At some point, though, I started writing things down and giving names to things and applying symbols to things. It just worked better for me that way. Rather than have all this mumbo jumbo of stuff floating around in my head, it felt more like a true religion to me personally if I could look at something on paper, if I actually had names to things and daily rituals to go through. And at that point, it became my organized personal religion. And that's the stage we're at right now. That's stage 2. We haven't quite morphed into stage 3 yet, the shared organized personal religion. Maybe we're just right on the cusp of that right now. Maybe that's what this website is, or whatever you're looking at right now or listening to. Maybe that's just the very beginnings of a shared organized personal religion. I don't know. Might be. But anyway, I just want to mention that because that brings me to a particular aspect of the organized version of my religion that I want to talk about. That religion, of course, you've heard me talk about, is the Meadow way, also known as the Chapel in the Meadow, or the Lucan Chapel. Now, let me show you something. You see this pile of yellow pieces of paper here? Big old giant stack of them. They're all the same color yellow, and they all have numbers. You can't see them, but up here in the corner, every one of these has a number. And this is just a small sample of the ones that exist. I have notebooks filled with these. Let me show you. Here's this notebook right here. I'll just open this up. See all of these things? They're all yellow sheets of paper. What are those yellow sheets of paper called? Well, I gave them a name back when I was organizing things a decade or so ago. And the technical name for these yellow sheets of paper are ovi, or ovi. Each one is an ovis, which is, I think it's a Latin term. It refers to seeds. But I also sometimes refer to these as the maxims and the axioms. But to make things more fun, to make it simpler, you know what I call these? I call every one of these yellow sheets of paper a daffodil. A daffodil. Like the flower. Okay? Now, put it in context. We're talking about what? Walking with Jesus in a beautiful meadow, right? What would be more appropriate in a meadow than daffodils? They symbolize rebirth and new beginnings. The daffodil is one of the earliest bulbs to bloom after the first of the year, usually in February. So they're virtually synonymous with spring. The botanic name is the narcissus, and daffodils are sometimes called jonquils. And in England, because of their long association with Lent, they're known as the Lent lily. And there's interesting lore connected with the daffodil around the world. Not only are they universally a sign of winter's end, but they're also a lucky emblem of future prosperity. In Wales, for example, it's said that if you spot the first daffodil of the season, your next 12 months will be filled with wealth. And Chinese legend has it that if a daffodil bulb is forced to bloom during the New Year, the Chinese New Year, it'll bring good luck to your home. That's right. The daffodil is the official flower of March, and it's the 10th wedding anniversary flower, too. And you know what? A gift of daffodils is supposed to ensure happiness. But, a word of warning, always remember to present daffodils in a bunch or a bouquet. They don't like being by themselves. They like to be with their friends. And the same legends that associate this cheerful and beautiful flower with good fortune also warn us that when given as a single bloom, a daffodil can foretell misfortune. So there you have it. Each one of these pieces of paper here is a daffodil. Why did I name these daffodils? Well, because of the color, for one thing. It happens that this particular shade of yellow is known as daffodil. In technical terms, if you're into web page design and that kind of thing, it's actually called #FFFFBA, which describes one of the many hues of this shade known as daffodil. So the way I like to think of it is this. In the New Testament, of course, John the Baptist, you'll recall, announced the arrival of the coming Jesus Christ. Well, I kind of think of it as the daffodil being the one that announces the coming of the rebirth, or spring. In my imagination, each one of these daffodils is a memo or reminder or a note or a revelation, if you will, from Jesus here in the meadow. I like to think that he drops these little daffodils along the way, plants them, and I find them, and then it's my opportunity to share them with others. How many are there, you ask? Well, each one has a number. There are, or mostly, there are thousands or a couple of thousand. I think the highest number really that I remember is, I think, 1,106, I think. 1106 or 1107, something like that. And they're all in these notebooks. There are a lot of them that are not even cataloged so far. They don't even have numbers yet. But just to give you an idea as to an example of what kind of little thoughts are on these things, let me read one to you. This just happens to be the one that's on the top here, number 1077. It reads like this. In NIM, we believe that every person must set aside a period of time, each day, each week, each month, and each year, to commune silently with Jesus. Somewhat akin to meditation, this period of time is marked by total eremitic minimalism. Wow. Total eremitic minimalism. This means that the person has to retreat totally into full 100% silent ponderance. There's that word ponder again. Silent ponderance. For those few moments or hours, he has to become a hermit with a minimalist existence. Nothing electronic, nothing noisy or brash, total reverence. So silent as to be one with the grass and the trees in the meadow. By the way, this one, number 1077, goes on to say, by the way, minimalism is a big part of the right life, rejecting all aspects of modern culture that run counter to the trine of peace, beauty, and life. There you go. Daffodil number 1077. And there's lots of those. And let me wrap it up by mentioning something here. The way I think of these thoughts that I have down on these yellow pieces of paper known as daffodils, these are just random thoughts that I put down just really quickly and briefly and succinctly. But what if somebody else who happened to be following along with me on this pathway known as NIM, or the Meadow Way, what if that person felt inclined to take one of these and expound upon it, and maybe write a paper on it, or write a book on it for that matter, and then share it with other people? Because that's actually what I think NIM is all about, really. It is not only about learning, but it's also about teaching. I think we should all take a scholarly approach to life and understanding the universe, but even more importantly, once we've learned a few things, we need to turn around then and teach others, share those things. So that's kind of the way I would envision this happening someday, would be somebody, who knows who, maybe you, finds one of these daffodils in the meadow, picks it, chooses it, and decides to elaborate on it. as to share it with somebody else. So I'm going to wrap it up for right now. I'm out of time, but thanks for stopping by, and we'll meet up again real soon. Until then, may God bless you.